So I just want to give just a very brief background introduction to vitamins and minerals. We always put these together, but when we stop and think about this, there's a lot of different functions, a lot of different diversity, even in vitamins and minerals themselves, but certainly across those as well. So vitamins, a diverse group of organic molecules found naturally in food. And probably the reason we put them together is they're required in very small amounts. Minerals, inorganic parts of feed ingredients, and feed additives, only required in low concentrations. These are mostly cofactors of enzymes, maintenance of osmotic balance, and formation of the skeleton. Let's see, the skeletal system and the liver are the major sites for most of our mineral storage. So just to give you an idea of the number of molecules that we're talking about, both fat-soluble, water-soluble vitamins, macrominerals, and trace minerals. So we're talking about 25 different molecules here. So let's do the math. 4 fat-soluble vitamins, 8 water-soluble vitamins, 6 macrominerals, 7 trace minerals. I've got 10 minutes. So we're going to do 24 seconds per topic. So I'm going to use an old reference here, but hopefully some of the people in here will understand ludicrous speed. So we're going to have to buckle up, and we're going to hit ludicrous speed. So if you don't get that reference, it's a great Mel Brooks film. Go back and watch it. Great movie. It's called Spaceballs. So obviously I don't have time to go through everything. But one of the things I wanted to do was talk a little bit about some of the major topics that were in this chapter, and that were maybe some of the limitations or some of the things that we thought were important going forward. The first thing that we noticed when we put both of these chapters together was a lack of or very limited updates in a lot of the requirements for these. And when we stop to think about this, every year we get this great genetic advancement. So it's actually been estimated that every year we get about a 1% decline in vitamin intake per egg produced. So as we're producing more eggs and our layers are consuming about the same amount of feed, proportionally that level of vitamin is going down. Same thing for minerals. Estimated 0.6 to 0.8% yearly decline in vitamin intake for body weight gain in broilers. So when we look at that, what are we actually looking at here? Are we continuing to erode our vitamin mineral safety margins because we haven't updated our requirements? Or is it possible that the selection for the feed efficiency increased the ability of the birds to extract vitamins and minerals from the diet? And I don't think we have a good understanding of that. It's probably a little bit of both, but that's something that I think there's room to explore there. So the next thing that we realized is a lot of the historical data was actually based on growth performance. And ultimately that's what we want, right? We want a fast-growing bird, and that's our first primary criteria. But what the committee also realized is that there's a lot of secondary, or maybe even more important response criteria that have to be considered as well. So when we think about these vitamins and minerals, we're talking about diverse functions within the body, and they're often needed in higher concentrations to maximize biological processes. So 2 examples I have here: vitamin E. Increased supplemental dietary vitamin E from 0 to 100 micro international units per kilogram diet, increased antibody production in Newcastle disease virus and avian influenza virus following vaccination. So this was on top of an adequate diet. So these birds would grow just fine, but if you add more zinc, you get a better immune response. From a mineral standpoint, selenium, endpoints for estimating the requirement are probably best based off of glutathione peroxidase rather than growth rates, because at minimal deficiency, because there's some redundancy in those responses, we don't see a huge negative growth response to marginal deficiency. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about, and in my mind, potentially the most important, is digestibility and bioavailability. I'll sort of mirror what Bill said earlier. Absolutely critical that we continue to move in this direction. From an economic standpoint, I think we all know those benefits. But from an environmental standpoint, when we can formulate on a digestible basis, we can take a lot of excess nutrients out of those diets. But then we also see bird health and welfare effects if we can more accurately formulate these diets. So what are our challenges? What do we need to improve to continue to use these systems and get better? Major concerns with the measurement of digestibility include relatively small concentrations of most vitamins and minerals in our feed ingredients. Variation of the amount and the actual digestibility within a feed ingredient. So as Gonzalo said earlier, that assay-to-assay variation. Anti-nutrients within the feed ingredients. Phytate is a great example here for most of our minerals. Standardization and repeatability of sample collection and analytical methods of detection. So the place where we've made the most progress in this is phosphorus, but we still have some work to do. This was published by Marcus in 2017, looking at a ring approach to trying to validate a standard method for phosphorus digestibility. And their conclusions here, I have just listed here. Until a more standardized protocol is established, care must be experienced when comparing phosphorus digestibility data from different laboratories. So I think we've made some good progress from a phosphorus standpoint, but we still need to be careful. We still need to make sure we pay attention to those methods and standardize those methods as best as possible. The second mineral that we've really made some more recent progress on is calcium. I think in the last 5 years I've seen more and more publications on calcium digestibility. And that's really driven by differences in utilization of various calcium sources, phytase and matrix values for calcium release as those are implemented. If you're working on a total basis, those are very hard to understand. And then to better understand the potential consequences of excess dietary calcium. I think that's still a relatively new area, but I think it's a critical area that we continue to look into. I went to some talks this morning. I was happy to see the continued publication of calcium digestibility results this morning. So I think we're off to a good start, but certainly more data are needed. So just in conclusion, lack of or limited updates on vitamins and minerals was probably the largest finding that the committee found when we went back and looked at the previous years of data collection. We want to make sure that when we're designing experiments, we certainly want to monitor growth performance, but we need to move to alternative response criteria to better reflect the diverse function of vitamins and minerals. And then certainly want to move to digestible and bioavailable assessment of vitamins and minerals as the data allow, or as our abilities allow. So that's the update from both the vitamins and minerals. I appreciate it.